This is a 500-year-old ice sculpture that has been ignored by the world. Yet today, at the exhibition, something unexpected happened. As time passed, the ice sculpture began to melt. Among them, one sculpture suddenly shattered before everyone's eyes. The hero who had been sealed for 500 years finally awakened. 500 years ago, he was recognized as the strongest hero in the world. Just as he was about to defeat the final boss, an accident occurred. The map to defeat the Frost Queen only allowed one person to enter. That meant humanity could rely on only one person to defeat the ultimate foe. Without hesitation, the other heroes gave this opportunity to Phantom. Among us, your strength is undoubtedly the greatest, so you're the most suitable to challenge the Frost Queen. Hearing this, Phantom fell silent for a moment. Aren't you going to regret this? But the four companions looked relaxed. If you're defeated by the Frost Queen, then maybe we will regret it. 5 years of teamwork didn't need many words. Phantom, carrying his teammates' hopes, stepped into the dungeon. As the final boss, the Frost Queen released a faint pressure that made everyone shiver. As the strongest player among the 5, Phantom went all out. No matter what skills the Frost Queen used, she could easily neutralize them. Suddenly, magical energy gathered in the Frost Queen's hands. The next second, a powerful surge burst forth. But it was this very strike that gave Phantom the opening he needed. With a single slash, he struck down the Frost Queen. So this is the final boss that disturbed the world. She's not that impressive after all. But just as he was about to deliver the finishing blow, something unexpected happened. As his blade pierced the Frost Queen's chest, a surge of powerful magic rushed into Phantom's body. To absorb the Frost Heart, before the absorption is complete, your body will enter a frozen state. And so, the world's strongest player was completely frozen. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, 25 years had passed. The 5-person team of that year had now become 5 icy statues admired by later generations. However, as the lecturer was recounting the team's heroic deeds, one finger of the statue on stage suddenly twitched. A child noticed and shouted loudly, but no one believed that a statue frozen for 25 years would suddenly revive. Yet in the very next second, the statue behind the lecturer began to crack. A figure suddenly burst out from the ice. The Frost Heart had been fully absorbed. You have acquired a new Frost skill. The news of Phantom's awakening spread wildly across the internet. The world celebrated the return of the legendary hero. Lying in his hospital bed, Phantom looked out the window and sighed at how much the world had changed. Maybe this is the peaceful world I always hoped for. Thinking this, he removed the mask from his face. Looks like I can finally show my true face to the world. But this action shocked the nearby doctor, who panicked. After all, no one had ever seen his real face all these years. Phantom, however, looked at everyone with a calm smile. Now that the world is at peace, this mask no longer has any meaning. Amid the commotion in the ward, a familiar figure appeared at the door. Phantom recognized him instantly. It was his longtime friend, Duke. After 25 years apart, Duke had become the president of the Player Association. Seeing Duke's thinning hair, Phantom couldn't help but burst out laughing. It's been so many years, and you still haven't developed a hair loss remedy? Duke brushed off the teasing and pulled up a chair with a serious expression. Actually, the world isn't at peace. It's even more dangerous than before. And the story begins, with the day you killed the Frost Queen. 25 years ago, news of the 5-person team clearing the Queen's lair spread across the world. Everyone cheered and celebrated this historic moment. But the joy lasted less than a minute. The news that followed left everyone stunned. The Queen's lair was only the first level. A dimensional elevator had appeared, allowing players to enter the second level. But when the human task force reached the border, they saw the elevator's display. There were 10 floors in total. Hearing this, Phantom fell into thought. It had taken their 5-person team 5 years to defeat the Frost Queen. By that pace, humanity should have cleared at least 7 floors in 25 years. Even accounting for weaker players back then, they should have reached the 5th floor. But in reality, after 25 years of relentless struggle, humanity had only managed to clear the 2nd floor. Phantom fell back on his bed, speechless. 25 years, and they've only cleared the 2nd floor. That's pathetic. Duke explained that there was a reason. The third floor was scorching hot, and only players resistant to heat could act freely. To solve the problem, the frost heart had to be placed on the altar. But humanity had scoured the queen's lair and never found the frost heart. Hearing this, Phantom froze, because he had absorbed the frost heart completely. Now he had to figure out how to explain this. Patting Duke on the shoulder, he said, "You can't blame yourself. Everyone has unlucky days. Cheer up, brother." Duke was deeply moved. "You're the only one who truly understands me." Phantom grew even more awkward, he had no idea how to tell Duke the truth. As night fell, Phantom entered the exhibition hall through Duke's connections. Looking at his teammates who had fought by his side for years, a wave of bitterness washed over him. Their shared wish had been world peace, yet true peace hadn't been achieved, and he was the only one left of the five. He filled his glass and told his frozen friends about the world's changes, when he suddenly noticed the dust covering their heads. Shaking his head, Phantom scolded the staff for their carelessness. They were heroes who once saved the world. How can they be treated so thoughtlessly? But when he placed his hand on the statue's head, the frost heart inside him was unexpectedly activated. Frost skill detected. Insufficient magic points. Unsealing failed. That meant the frost heart's power could unseal his teammates. Phantom immediately opened his status panel, only to find that after unsealing, all his abilities had been reset. To recover his magic points, he would need to level up again. But then, a special title on the panel caught his eye. It was the title he earned for slaying the Frost Queen. Players with this title would gain extra rewards with each cleared floor. All abilities will increase by 30 points. This also means that as long as he keeps leveling up, one day he'll even be able to completely make the Ice Queen's power his own. By then, he can use the Ice Queen's power to unseal his team. The next day, Phantom called Derek to the hospital room early in the morning and expressed his intention to contribute. Hearing this news, Derek immediately opposed it. "First of all, what's most important for you right now is to get proper rest. Also, don't forget, that group of tormentors has been watching you all along. They're a bunch of people who, for their own selfish desires, would kill the innocent and destroy society without hesitation. Since the second floor of the Magic Tower opened, all surveillance and satellites have failed, and no country can control them anymore. Now that they've learned of your awakening, the Tormentor organization is constantly plotting revenge against you. So if you truly want to return to your old line of work, you must abandon the name Phantom and act under your real name, Human Row." Phantom agreed immediately without even thinking, because those things didn't matter to him. As long as he could contribute, he'd find a way to break through the 10th floor directly. Derek was shocked and immediately asked him what method he had. But Phantom remained calm, then slowly set down the spoon in his hand. "I ate it." Derek looked confused. "Ate what?" "The rice bowl in your hand." "No, the Heart of Frost." Derek exploded. "Something humanity has searched for 25 years, and you just ate it?" At that moment, Derek felt his blood pressure spike. "My God, how did I end up with a friend like you?" But what's done is done. The priority now was to help him get his player license. Over the past 25 years, the influence of the Player Guild has gradually surpassed that of the Player Association. Many large guilds have joined in the license examination process. So even as the president of the Player Association, Derek couldn't directly get Phantom a license. Still, it wasn't like he had no way. If he used his authority as president to act as a recommender, Phantom could easily get the chance to be examined. And if he performed well during the assessment, both the guild and the association would fight desperately to recruit him. Phantom agreed, since this was the only way to obtain the license now. 2.5 months passed in the blink of an eye, and the annual license examination conference was held as scheduled today. Holding number 75, Phantom sat bored on a bench in the hall while the screen in front of him broadcast the test of candidate number 1. Everyone was captivated by the candidate's wide and powerful moves. "He's so strong, he'll definitely get his license easily." But Phantom had a different view. The biggest advantage of a spear is keeping distance from the enemy, yet he attacked at such close range, giving his opponent an opening. Sure enough, less than a minute later, candidate number 1 was knocked to the ground by the test monster. After a long wait, the broadcast finally called out candidate number 75. As Phantom entered, the examiners were all stunned. He held a long sword, carried a curved bow on his back, and even had a 2.5-meter giant blade resting on his shoulder. Even veteran examiners with over a decade of experience had never seen such a display. As Phantom nodded to signal he was ready, the test officially began. Instantly, a dozen goblins appeared in the arena and rushed at Phantom without hesitation. Phantom grinned. Scenes like this really bring back memories. With a swing of his giant blade, several goblins in front of him were instantly sliced in half. Realizing the danger, the remaining goblins scattered to fight in groups. But such basic tricks couldn't fool the battle-hardened Phantom. He drew the throwing knives strapped to his leg and hurled them backward, instantly piercing through 5 goblins. But that wasn't all. He drew his curved bow next, and with precise swordsmanship, he eliminated 4 more goblins in the next second. He was full of confidence in his swordsmanship. After all, his mentor was Tristan, renowned for hitting a target with every shot. Seeing their tactics fail, the remaining goblins decided to fight to the death. Phantom gave a faint smile. In that case, I'll finish this with my sword. After a flurry of blades and flashes, all the goblins in the arena were quickly wiped out. The examiners on the platform were very satisfied with his performance, praising how his understanding of all kinds of weapons was beyond ordinary people. But when they opened his profile panel, they found only a fragile earth-level skill among his abilities. This also meant that as his level increased, he'd face more and more problems. Although the examiners admired his combat skills, none of them wanted to take in such a troublesome youth. Meanwhile, Derek leisurely sipped his coffee from the sidelines, because this was exactly the outcome he had planned. This way, he could smoothly recommend Phantom to the Player Association. Although falsifying records wasn't ideal, he had only omitted a bit of information. The next day, Derek brought a large number of dungeon files to Phantom as requested. What he couldn't understand was why Phantom wanted to study these unchallenged dungeons. Was he planning to venture into them? After all, the reason those dungeons had never been cleared was because they were filled with traps. Even well-coordinated teams had perished inside, let alone someone in Phantom's current physical state. Entering would be risking his life. But Phantom said there was no need to worry too much. After all these years, don't you know my strength by now? Although those dungeons had never been cleared, the longer they remained untouched, the greater their rewards and experience became. For someone aiming to level up quickly, this was undoubtedly the best choice. Moreover, since he chose to return as a player, it was inevitable he'd encounter the Tormentor organization somewhere. Before facing them, he had to regain his former strength. Seeing the determination in Phantom's eyes, Derek knew there was no convincing him, so he started helping Phantom search for the dungeons he could currently enter. The results came out quickly. The dungeon was called The Curse of Dawn, and since its appearance, it had claimed the lives of 142 players. Because it only allowed level 1 players to enter, it was nicknamed the Beginner's Grave. Although he knew he couldn't stop Phantom, Derek didn't want to see his longtime friend die in there. He immediately took out the protective gear he had treasured for years. Looking at this rare gear, Phantom couldn't contain his excitement. He never expected that old man to have hidden such valuable treasures. Soon, 10 days passed. Fully prepared, Phantom was now standing at the dungeon's entrance. The Phantom of the past, it was time for him to return to this world. As he stepped through the dungeon's teleportation gate, what came into view was utter silence. The only condition for clearing the dungeon was to survive until dawn. This made him start to doubt the dungeon's true difficulty. Soon night fell. Phantom leisurely leaned against a big tree, reading a novel. However, a strange aura suddenly spread around him. Sensing something was off, Phantom immediately got up to investigate, only to find that at some unknown point, the surroundings had become swarmed with zombies. These zombies felt no pain. If they weren't killed in a single strike, they would keep attacking endlessly. Perhaps this was why the place was called the Beginner's Grave. After fighting desperately for 2.5 hours, he finally slaughtered all the zombies around him. But just as he was about to catch his breath, a man's cry for help suddenly came from behind. Following the sound, Phantom quickly arrived before a coffin. What puzzled him was how a man could be buried inside a coffin. The man explained that all his companions had been killed by zombies, and only by hiding inside the coffin had he managed to survive. Hearing this, Phantom's expression hardened. Then, he suddenly drew his pistol and fired several shots at the coffin. In the next second, a massive deceiver burst out. As expected, his guess was right. I was wondering why over 100 people died in a beginner dungeon, so it was all thanks to you. Phantom slashed down with his blade, and the deceiver was split cleanly in two by the powerful strike. With the last monster falling, Phantom successfully cleared the dungeon. Not only did his level shoot straight up to level 5, but he also obtained a brand new skill, Ling's Confession. Although he didn't yet know what this skill could do, this was, after all, his first newly acquired ability as a player. Without a doubt, it was a promising start. Very soon, the news of the Curse of Dawn being conquered by a player spread through the newspapers. The media began to speculate wildly about who the player was that had cleared the dungeon. This left Derek puzzled. If Phantom were to reveal his identity now, his market value would skyrocket several times over. However, Phantom said there was no need to rush. To find out who had cleared the Curse of Dawn, the media would definitely turn their attention to other unchallenged dungeons. When that time came, all he had to do was walk out of a dungeon openly, and he would naturally become the most low-key hero in everyone's eyes. Hearing this, Derek was speechless. Low-key? This is clearly just teasing everyone's curiosity. In the days that followed, Phantom trained relentlessly to restore his abilities, because his next target was a dungeon called Tree Flower Garden. This dungeon had been discovered 9 years ago and had yet to be cleared to this day. However, dungeons that remained uncleared for too long shared a common trait: the monsters inside would eventually break free and attack humans. To prevent this, the Player Association had offered a generous bounty, prompting many players to attempt the challenge. But after 124 battles, every attempt had ended in failure. In the end, the National Association had to seek help from overseas players. They paid a high price to invite a rising foreign star to take on the challenge. This super rookie possessed terrifying strength, his swordsmanship no weaker than that of Tristan, the archery master of a 5-man elite team. Yet even such a genius failed to come out of Tree Flower Garden alive. That's why Phantom needed to make thorough preparations this time, or he might meet the same fate as those before him. Through his previous training, all his abilities had increased by 30%, and he had mastered the use of the Heart of Frost. So now, he would personally set out to uncover the secrets of the place that had claimed countless geniuses. But when he arrived at Tree Flower Garden, he was greeted by a breathtaking sight, a sea of flowers and a verdant labyrinth full of springtime vitality. Was this really the nightmare dungeon that had slaughtered so many players? Thanks to his previous dungeon experience, Phantom didn't rush in. Instead, he quietly stayed inside a pavilion, waiting for nightfall. Sure enough, as the sky darkened, strange sprouts began growing out of the tranquil flower fields. In the next second, 2 ancient tree spirits burst out of the ground. Only 2. That's way too few. As soon as he finished speaking, Phantom lifted his spear and charged toward the tree spirits. He thrust the spear tip into the ground, used the recoil to leap into the air, and channeled the Heart of Frost's magic through the entire weapon. Then, with a mighty swing, the spear struck down, and the 2 tree spirits were instantly blasted to pieces by the powerful energy. But before he could even catch his breath, 4 more tree spirits appeared behind him. Phantom, still full of strength, charged once more. His fluid spear techniques flowed like water, weaving through the tree spirits, cutting down all 4 in the blink of an eye. Then, suddenly, another sound came from behind. He spun around sharply to see that the number of tree spirits had doubled again. Damn it, if the monsters keep increasing at this rate, when will it ever end? He grumbled inwardly, though his hands never stopped moving. Raising his spear again, he launched another attack on the tree spirits. 16, 32, 64, an endless wave of monsters soon drained his stamina completely. Exhausted, Phantom could only fight while retreating. The battle dragged on for 2.5 hours. When the last monster of the 7th wave was finally slain, the system popped up a notification announcing the dungeon's conquest. But the victory brought him no joy. Instead, a faint unease crept into his heart. If he alone could handle so many tree spirits, then how had Thatcher's 4-man team fallen here back then? Could something unknown have happened? With this doubt lingering in his mind, Phantom soon reached the entrance to the labyrinth. Signs of intense battle were everywhere. As he ventured deeper, one corpse after another came into view. The sight filled Phantom with sorrow. These people could have contributed so much to the world, yet their lives ended here. As he turned his head, one body in the corner caught his attention. The curved bow in the man's hand was none other than the legendary storm bow. And the owner of the storm bow was. From beginning to end, there was only one. And that was Thatcher, the man hailed as the world's #1 genius archer. At that moment, Phantom clasped his hands together, silently praying for this warrior who had once saved the world. But unintentionally, under Thatcher's palm, he spotted a notebook. As the notebook was opened, the secret buried within the Tree Flower Garden dungeon was finally revealed to the world. 9 years ago, on a certain day, Thatcher suddenly received a dungeon invitation from the Player Association of Country H. And the target he needed to conquer this time was none other than the Tree Flower Garden, which had already defeated 124 players. Thrilled by the invitation, Thatcher was overjoyed, for this was undoubtedly an excellent opportunity to prove himself during his rise. On the other side, when Thatcher's wife heard the news of his invitation, she immediately expressed her wish to accompany him to Country H to challenge the dungeon. As the wife of the world's #1 genius archer, Gaia was also an exceptionally powerful player. She had once cleared many high-difficulty dungeons together with Thatcher. So this time, by going with him, she could help share part of his risk. Meanwhile, in another residence, a middle-aged man was happily playing with his daughter. "Dad, make sure to take care of yourself. When you come back, you have to take me to the zoo," the girl said. The man, full of reluctance, pressed his face against his daughter's. "As long as you listen to Grandma, Daddy will agree to anything." At that moment, Thatcher was already waiting at the door. As comrades who had fought side by side for years, the man couldn't just watch Thatcher venture into danger alone. Besides, with such a great dungeon to challenge, he naturally didn't want to miss this chance to make a name for himself. Soon, the two arrived at the airport, where Gaia was waiting with another figure. His name was Lance, Gaia's longtime friend. He had come this time at Gaia's invitation to assist Thatcher in clearing the dungeon. Before long, the four of them arrived at the legendary Tree Flower Garden. But unlike Phantom's experience, they encountered 8 tree spirits in the very first monster wave. However, thanks to their teamwork, they quickly wiped them all out. But as the monsters doubled with each wave, by the third wave, the number of tree spirits had already reached 32. At this moment, the four finally understood the true terror of this dungeon. But already deep in danger, there was no way out. Before long, the middle-aged man made a misstep and was pierced through the chest by a tree spirit. Seeing the situation turn dire, Thatcher immediately ordered Gaia and Lance to take the man into the labyrinth while he stayed behind to cover their retreat. They barely held out until dawn, but the man, having lost too much blood, passed away forever. Watching his comrade, who had once shared life and death with him, die right before his eyes, Thatcher felt for the first time just how powerless he truly was. All he could do was pray at dusk, hoping no one else would be hurt. Another day passed, and they cleared the 5th wave of monsters, but Gaia lost her life in this battle. Holding his dead lover in his arms, Thatcher felt unprecedented despair. They had promised to clear the dungeon together. Now that she was gone, what meaning was left in all of this? Just as he was drowning in sorrow, a familiar figure slowly approached from behind and suddenly launched a surprise attack. Thatcher didn't have time to react and was instantly stabbed in the arm. When he looked up to see who attacked him, he was stunned to find it was his own teammate. When he saw the red glow in Finn's eyes, Thatcher finally realized he was a shepherd spy planted by the enemy. And his purpose was to seize the divine weapon in Thatcher's hands, the storm bow. At that moment, Finn stared at Thatcher with a sinister smile, saying that if Thatcher obediently handed over the storm bow, he could give him a quick death. But if he resisted, Finn would kill him first and then torture his wife. Overcome with grief and rage, Thatcher could do nothing. Days of fighting had already drained his strength completely. But just as despair set in, the sight before him made his heart tremble. Behind Finn, countless monsters had surrounded him without anyone noticing. Seeing this, Thatcher immediately turned and ran into the distance. Finn soon realized the danger, but it was too late. The monsters swarmed and tore his body apart. Meanwhile, heavily wounded, Thatcher had reached the depths of the labyrinth. The poison on the blade was slowly corroding his body. He knew his life was coming to an end. Damn shepherds. If the gods can hear my plea, I hope they cast those vile beings into hell. But at this point, all he could do was hope that future adventurers who cleared the tree flower garden would find this notebook. Seeing this, Phantom finally unraveled the mystery in his heart. He clasped his hands together once again and bowed toward the fallen hero. Rest assured, I will destroy the Shepherd organization and avenge all of you. The next day, Derek personally delivered the notebook Phantom had brought back to Thatcher's home. The foreign leaders also personally expressed their gratitude for Phantom's actions. But what made Derek regretful was that the storm bow in Thatcher's possession had been lost. That was an irreplaceable divine artifact. But Phantom remained calm. He casually pulled out a gleaming weapon from under his blanket. Who said it was lost? Isn't it right here with me? Derek was struck as if by 100,000 blows. The storm bow was considered a national treasure of the foreign nation. How could Phantom hide it like that? But Phantom told him not to make a fuss. He would personally return it once he was done using it. Besides, he had his reasons. Don't forget, the Shepherd organization is also tracking the storm bow. Those lunatics value gear more than human lives. If they find out it's in my hands, the next time I enter a dungeon, they'll definitely send assassins after me. And when that happens, I can track them down without lifting a finger. Hearing this, Derek could only nod, though he still worried about the danger Phantom might face once targeted by the Shepherds. After all, they were ruthless people who'd do anything for their own gain. But Phantom said there was nothing to worry about. I won't let what happened 25 years ago repeat itself. At that moment, Derek's watch suddenly buzzed with a message. The reporters had gotten wind of Phantom's actions. The news of clearing the Tree Flower Garden dungeon instantly caused the Player Association headquarters to be surrounded on all sides. Fortunately, the security guards at the entrance reacted quickly, preventing the scene from descending into total chaos. Just as Derek was preparing to go out and dismiss the reporters, Phantom suddenly called out to him from behind and expressed his willingness to accept the interview. Since the decisive battle with the Shepherd organization was now inevitable, he might as well take this opportunity to announce his next plan to the world. That way, it would also make it easier for the Shepherds to find him faster. On the other side, the press conference venue was quickly set up, and the crowd below the stage whispered among themselves, marveling at the birth of a new superstar from Country H. However, when Phantom entered the room, everyone looked utterly shocked. He wore slippers on his feet, shorts on his legs, and his hair was a complete mess, occasionally scratching his head with his hand. No one could believe that this disheveled young man before them was the genius player who had cleared 2 previously unconquered dungeons in a row. But Phantom didn't care at all. After all, as someone who was once the strongest player in the world, such occasions were nothing more than routine for him. When the reporters began asking questions, Phantom directly revealed his next plan, to challenge the final unconquered dungeon in Country H, the Central Sea Dungeon. Upon hearing this, the entire room erupted in shock. Everyone knew that dungeon was considered a hell-level challenge that terrified new players around the world. Rumor had it that even a random small monster inside would be equivalent to a boss in any other dungeon. No one could believe that this rookie could possibly make it out alive. But Phantom didn't care about their doubts. Don't worry, I'll definitely defeat all the ultimate monsters. Very soon, the topic of Phantom challenging the Eastern Sea Dungeon spread across the internet, and he became a household name throughout Country H. Looking at the pile of commission contracts stacked on the table, Derek couldn't hide his excitement. However, picking out the most suitable commission among them was no easy task. First, he had to consider the dungeon difficulty and rewards listed in the contracts. Next, he had to think about how much payment the client was offering. After all, Phantom's first commission would directly determine his future market value. After carefully selecting for 2.5 hours, Derek finally found a suitable mission. It was a commission issued by the chairman of the Bright Sky Group. The document stated that his daughter was suffering from an incurable disease, and the only medicine that could treat it was the Firefox's core. To complete this mission, Phantom would have to enter the hard-level dungeon, Scorching Dunes. This dungeon had only appeared 3 months ago, yet in that short time, 7 teams had already perished inside. But to Phantom, this wasn't necessarily bad news. Since his return, he hadn't encountered any remarkable players yet, so this would be a perfect chance to gauge others' strength. Time quickly flew by to the day the dungeon opened. Media outlets arrived early at the entrance to wait, and when Phantom showed up, reporters immediately swarmed around him, eager to get a statement from the hottest young player in Country H. Just then, a boy in red interrupted the interview. "Since everyone's here, let's get moving." He then led a group of players straight toward the portal. Upon entering the dungeon, a barren desert unfolded before their eyes. Although the soft sand would hinder their combat performance, everyone still trudged deeper into the dungeon to help their guild obtain the Firefox's core. But after only a few steps, the red-clad boy stopped everyone again and began introducing himself despite the curious stares. His name was Marcus, from the Sea Blue Guild, ranked 13th in Country H, and his goal was the same as everyone else's, to defeat the final boss and obtain the Firefox's core. However, in a large-scale dungeon like this, individual power alone was not enough. So he proposed that everyone temporarily join Sea Blue Guild. If they helped the guild get the Firefox's core, Sea Blue would pay each player a bonus of up to 600,000. Though the crowd looked reluctant, there was no better strategy for conquering the dungeon at the moment. Besides, if they didn't rely on Sea Blue Guild's strength, they could easily die inside the dungeon. Thinking this through, they all raised their hands to agree to join. At that moment, however, a lone figure had already broken away from the group and was walking straight into the distance. Marcus quickly called out, "Ethan, you're not planning to join us? If you do, I'll ask the guild to give you double the reward." But Phantom plainly replied that he wasn't interested. Compared to huddling for safety, solo fighting had always been his style. With that, he turned and headed deeper into the dungeon once more. Not long after Phantom left, an unexpected situation occurred. The sand in front of the player alliance suddenly bulged, and in the next second, dozens of vicious foxes burst out of the ground. Marcus immediately ordered everyone not to act recklessly. As long as they followed his plan, he could guarantee everyone's safety. Just as the fox horde lunged toward them, two of Marcus's subordinates triggered a preset trap. Four high-voltage devices sprang up from the ground, electrocuting more than a dozen monsters instantly. After clearing most of the enemies, the players unleashed their strongest skills and quickly finished off the remaining monsters. But just as they thought the battle was over, a dark shadow suddenly blotted out the sky. Looking up, they saw a massive nine-tailed fire fox standing on a high dune. The sight left everyone frozen in shock. No one expected the dungeon's ultimate boss to appear this early. Seeing the corpses of its kin scattered everywhere, the fire fox's eyes flared with murderous light, and its furious roar seemed to declare that it would devour everyone present. Marcus, however, was thrilled. If he could slay the nine-tailed fire fox, he would surpass Phantom's record of defeating the six-tailed fire fox and become the world's strongest player in one leap. Moreover, he had prepared the most advanced high-tech traps for this fight. But to his shock, after just one round of combat with the fire fox, his meticulously crafted battle plan collapsed completely. Other players were killed or gravely injured, and Marcus fell to his knees in despair. "Looks like I'm really going to die here today." At that moment, the fire fox formed another fireball in its mouth and shot it straight toward Marcus. But at the critical moment, Phantom suddenly appeared and blocked the attack in front of him. Directly drawing his sword, he sliced the incoming fireball cleanly in half. Seeing this, Minyu froze on the spot. He thought to himself, just what kind of monster is this guy? At that moment, Phantom turned to look at Minyu behind him. "What are you standing there for? Get everyone out of here, now." Snapped out of his shock, Minyu quickly gave orders to his subordinates to start rescuing the wounded. After all the survivors left the battlefield, a meaningful smile appeared on Phantom's face. "It's been a long time since I've had a proper fight. Guess I'll use you to stretch my muscles." Thinking this, Phantom rose to his feet and charged straight toward Firefox. Despite Firefox's relentless attacks, Phantom effortlessly dodged every strike with his incredible agility. Just as he was about to close in, Firefox suddenly let out a furious roar. In the next instant, a massive fireball formed in the sky. A second later, it shot straight toward Phantom. The moment it hit the ground, it erupted with an enormous wave of energy. As the smoke slowly cleared, Firefox suddenly caught a scent of something, its expression turning ferocious. It slammed its paw into the ground. At that exact moment, Phantom leapt out from the smoke and landed squarely on Firefox's face. But before he could adjust, Firefox spewed another blast of scorching flames at him. The intense heatwave instantly launched him 100 meters into the air. But that very strike finally gave Phantom the opening he needed. He summoned the frost power within him, coating his entire longsword with icy energy. Then, moving at incredible speed, he dove straight down. Since your power depends on how many tails you have, then if I cut them off, your strength should drop too. Thinking this, Phantom swung his sword down, instantly severing 3 of Firefox's tails. Watching the creature writhe in pain, a wicked grin spread across Phantom's face. No one's ever been able to tame you before. That's why you've been free to slaughter other players as you please. But now, it's your turn to feel what it's like to be the prey. With those words, Phantom raised his sword and launched another attack at Firefox. Seeing this, Firefox tried to fight back, but the next second, Phantom's blade pierced one of its eyes. Enraged, Firefox didn't back down. Instead, it summoned a blazing inferno, ready for a desperate last stand. Phantom gathered all his frost power into his palm, clenched tightly, and instantly formed an icy spear, which he drove straight into Firefox's heart. As the system notification for Firefox's defeat sounded, the exhausted Phantom could no longer hold himself up. His weakened body collapsed heavily to the ground, unconscious. Meanwhile, outside the dungeon portal, a large crowd of reporters still waited. On one hand, they prayed for the players still fighting inside. On the other, they wanted to be the first to get the news of the dungeon's clearance. At that moment, the red portal suddenly turned green. Then, Minyu emerged from the portal carrying Phantom on his back. Reporters swarmed forward at once. "Player Minyu, we heard it was thanks to your leadership that everyone cleared the dungeon. How do you feel right now?" Seeing the scene, Minyu was silent for a moment. So this is what it feels like to be a hero. Ever since grade school, he had dreamed of becoming a hero like Phantom. But reality had made it clear, becoming a hero admired by thousands isn't easy. Thinking that, he raised his head to face the reporters. "Actually, the one who cleared the dungeon wasn't me, but the one lying in the ambulance right now, player Phantom." The next day, Phantom went with his assistant to the client's residence early in the morning. The chairman of Manhwa Group, Charles Zhu, personally greeted them. After explaining his daughter's condition, Charles Zhu led Phantom to the door of her room. But as Phantom opened the door, his brows immediately furrowed. The girl's condition was far worse than he'd imagined. Without immediate treatment, she could lose her life at any moment. Just as he took the fire core from his inventory, a system prompt appeared above the patient: moderate frost aura detected. Frost skill can be used to absorb the aura. Absorbing frost aura will increase mana. Phantom froze. He knew frost skills were versatile, but he never imagined they had this function too. If he used the Heart of Frost to absorb the aura, he could quickly accumulate enough mana to save his team. After 2.5 exhausting hours, Phantom finally stepped out of the room drenched in sweat. Charles Zhu rushed over to ask about his daughter's condition. Hearing that she had fully recovered, tears welled up in the eyes of the usually stoic father. To thank Phantom for saving his daughter's life, Charles Zhu offered him a reward of 90 million. But Phantom refused, saying he didn't save her for the money. "If you truly want to thank me, Mr. Zhu, donate the money to a charity in country H. It'll help more people in need." Charles Zhu immediately agreed and promised that no matter what difficulties Phantom faced in the future, he and the Manhwa Group would fully support him. Phantom's heart stirred. After all, Manhwa Group's influence spanned all of country H, and its most famous guild was the Red Tower Guild, ranked 5th. Gaining their support would give him extra security in his fight against the demon organization. Thinking this, Phantom quickly nodded in agreement. "Then I'll thank you in advance, Mr. Zhu." Back at the player association, Phantom immediately told Deacon about his experience absorbing frost aura and asked him to find items infused with frost energy. If he could restore his strength quickly, it wouldn't just benefit him, the player association could seize this chance to reclaim leadership over country H's guilds. Deacon was silent for a moment. "It's a good opportunity, but finding such rare items won't be easy. Even if I turn the entire armory upside down, it'd be hard to find anything with frost aura." If you're serious about restoring your power this way, there's one place where you might try your luck, the underground black market beneath Abinia City. It's said to be beyond the control of any nation, a paradise where criminals roam free. Arms dealers and smugglers are everywhere here. And to find the rare item that carries icy energy, Phantom went straight to the black market, hoping to try his luck. After entering a weapons store, Phantom directly told the owner what he wanted, and the owner simply pointed to a nearby shelf. "Everything's over there, pick whatever you like." Phantom looked in the direction the owner pointed and saw rows of dazzling rare items displayed before him. Although these items contained some cold energy, compared to what he needed, they still fell far short of the standard. At this moment, Phantom suddenly turned to the owner behind him. "I heard your shop has a room dedicated to storing top-tier equipment. Why don't you take me there for a look?" The shop owner was instantly shocked and quickly denied it, saying there was no such place in his store. Phantom didn't argue, he simply pulled out a golden necklace from his pocket. Seeing this, the owner stopped denying, accepted the golden necklace, then entered a series of codes on the wall. As the door opened, what appeared before Phantom was a whole wardrobe full of rare items. Phantom immediately picked the best one, Frost Elf's Wrath. It was said that the glove carried a powerful curse, and if the wearer wasn't strong enough, they'd be instantly frozen. After checking the attributes, Phantom felt satisfied. If he could absorb the icy energy from this equipment into his body, it would surely boost his magic power by a lot. After leaving the weapons shop, Phantom headed to a bar, which was the only way to return to the surface world. Upon learning that it would take 10 minutes to activate the teleportation device, Phantom ordered a drink from the bartender, planning to sip and wait. But at that moment, 3 thug-like players appeared behind him. "Isn't this the famous Max Su? We've heard plenty of stories about you." Seeing the situation, Phantom instantly realized they were here to cause trouble. In this world, reputation was extremely important for players. The higher the fame, the more lucrative commissions one could receive. So to boost their fame, many veteran players made a name for themselves by bullying newcomers. But Phantom didn't want to waste time on them, he didn't want the media to pick up on his whereabouts over something so trivial. Yet the next second, the glass on the table was slashed to pieces by the fat man behind him. "Playing deaf, huh? If it weren't for us veterans paving the way, you think you could have cleared so many dungeons?" Phantom suddenly burst out laughing. "Just a bunch of punks, talking to me about paving the way. All you want is to bully newbies for media attention. If you're trying to use me to get famous, let's see if you've got what it takes." With that, he pulled a small fruit knife from his bag. "I'm in a hurry. The 3 of you, come at me together." The fat man instantly felt deeply insulted and swung his long sword at Phantom. But Phantom remained calm, easily catching the blade with one hand, yanking the fat man toward him, and smashing his elbow into the man's face, leaving a deep dent. Just as the fat man fell, the blonde leader at the side gathered magic in his hands, launching hundreds of needles toward Phantom. Phantom quickly ducked, but the red-clothed thug blocked his way and attacked without hesitation. Blondie smirked with satisfaction. Newbies couldn't usually handle multiple enemies at once. He believed it wouldn't take long before Phantom lost. But within seconds, the sight before him left him stunned. Phantom stepped onto the red-clothed thug's shoulder, and with a loud crack, the man's arm bent backward 180 degrees. Blondie panicked, he hadn't expected this rookie to be that powerful. As the leader of the 3 wonders of Jiangnan, he wasn't about to give up. He launched another barrage of hundreds of needles. Phantom swiftly dashed forward with incredible agility, dodging them in an instant, appearing right in front of Blondie. "In my eyes, you're nothing but worthless trash." With that, Phantom stabbed Blondie's hands to the wall with a single strike. As Blondie's screams echoed through the bar, the onlookers burst into cheers, clapping and celebrating Phantom's performance. "Max Su, you're our idol." But Phantom ignored it all. At some point, this world had turned strange. People, driven by selfish desires, could freely take lives, and even without understanding the truth, they blindly applauded the victor. Is this really the world I've been trying to save? Soon, the bar fight was turned into a video and uploaded online, making Phantom an overnight sensation. Right now, he was blankly posing for photos with fans. If this kept up, he wouldn't be able to go home for a week. Just then, a small figure appeared behind him. You must be Max Su. Interested in having a chat. He had come under the vice president's orders to recruit him. Junior sister, as a representative of Great King Guild, one of the world's 6 top guilds, told Phantom they could create personalized dungeon strategies for him. Their resources and annual salaries were unmatched by any other group. Joining them would undoubtedly benefit his future development. But despite the tempting offer, Phantom firmly refused. He knew there was no such thing as a free lunch. Joining Great King Guild could bring him fame and fortune in the short term, but he'd have to follow orders and complete various missions, which would ultimately become shackles on his freedom. Seeing his firm stance, Gao Shouxia didn't push further. As he left, he warned Phantom to be extra careful in the coming days, as Moran organization's movements were becoming increasingly frequent. If you were assassinated, it would be a real shame. Hearing this, Phantom sincerely thanked him. Meanwhile, a red-haired boy with skeletal arms was watching the news about Phantom preparing to raid the East Sea dungeon. He was none other than Moran Karl, currently on the 2nd floor, plotting to seize Phantom's storm palace. He immediately dispatched the Shadow Brothers to carry out the assassination mission, and the next day Phantom received news that players from Manhwa were going to participate in the East Sea dungeon. This sudden change made him suspicious, so he asked Secretary Zhang to send all the information on the Shadow Brothers. Vincent and Edbar, as top players, completed more than 300 escort missions in just 2.5 years. Regarding their participation in the East Sea dungeon, they even declared righteously in an interview that they wanted to follow in Phantom's footsteps. After reading the information, Phantom showed a meaningful smile. These 2 guys were indeed useful. Time quickly arrived at the day to conquer the East Sea dungeon. Under the flashlights of a large group of reporters, Phantom entered the dungeon together with the Shadow Brothers. The ultimate monster here was a guardian dragon, but what they saw was just a lonely island. Seeing this, the Shadow Brothers relaxed their guard and began admiring the scenery, but Phantom alone sensed the terrifying aura filling the surroundings. The next second, a shadow from the storyline instantly enveloped them. Looking up, the guardian dragon stood tall in the sky, its fiery red eyes seemingly ready to devour the 3 humans below completely. Seeing this, the Shadow Brothers immediately asked for the battle plan, only to find Phantom had already vanished without a trace. They were at a loss, and just then the guardian dragon suddenly turned back. A roar erupted, lightning flashed instantly, and it became like a living hell. The terrifying pressure even made the air tremble. At this moment, the Shadow Brothers were so terrified they didn't know what to do. As the dragon swooped down, they could only dodge and panic, while Phantom quietly watched the show from the treetops. Once they exposed their demonic identities, Phantom wouldn't hesitate to take them out. Meanwhile, Edbar knew that continuing like this would only waste stamina, so he summoned countless shadow warriors to prepare for a counterattack, then ordered Vincent to find Phantom's whereabouts. Instantly, a rain of swords shot toward the sky, and the guardian dragon's massive body couldn't completely evade. Taking advantage of the moment when the monster was stretched thin, Vincent quickly escaped. His figure darted through the dense jungle, soon discovering Phantom's hiding spot. Without hesitation, he gripped his sword tightly and slashed forward, but he found that the figure had dissolved into nothingness. He had clearly felt Phantom's magical field earlier, and fighting in the forest should have allowed him to use his shadow attributes to their fullest. Yet now this unknown feeling made his hair stand on end. Just as he was about to head deeper into the forest to investigate, a strange voice echoed faintly in his ear, "So you really are a demon." Hearing this, Vincent tried hard to defend himself, but he didn't realize that his demonic copper traits had long been exposed. Seeing his identity discovered, Vincent simply came clean. In the dungeon, there was a very small chance that demonic players would appear, and by drinking their blood, one could become a demon. Although this granted powerful control over demonic energy, it also made one violent and stripped away human emotions. At this moment, Vincent had already unleashed all his demonic energy, then condensed shadow spikes and launched the first attack. However, Phantom appeared ghost-like right behind him. Meanwhile, Edbar was fiercely battling the guardian dragon, when suddenly Vincent, with a terrified face, burst out of the woods. Excitedly, he told Edbar everything that had just happened, but Edbar thought he was exaggerating. "If he's that strong, how did you escape?" he retorted. "At this point, let's just focus on killing the guardian dragon first." After a brief discussion, they decided to attack the dragon's reverse scale. Just then, the guardian dragon gathered terrifying thunder power and struck, sending the Shadow Brothers flying several meters away, while the summoned Shadow Warriors were instantly obliterated. Edbar suffered backlash and spat out a large amount of blood. Seeing his brother seriously injured, Vincent was instantly furious, determined to annihilate the monster completely. The next second, shadow spears shot out like arrows from a bow, their speed so great that the guardian dragon couldn't dodge in time. The spear struck its head directly, but its tough scales blocked all the power. Seeing the attack fail, Vincent condensed shadow energy beneath his feet, his figure shooting up like a wraith. In the blink of an eye, he reached the guardian dragon's back, and as he used all his strength to tear off the reverse scale, he found that the exposed flesh was charged with thunder energy. A violent roar echoed across the sky as Vincent's battered body hit the ground. At this moment, the guardian dragon had no intention of letting them off easily, unleashing countless bolts of lightning that poured down. The Shadow Brothers could only scatter in all directions to save their skins. Seeing this, Phantom couldn't help but mock their stupidity. Although the reverse scale was the dragon's weak point, tearing it off only made it even more furious. To deal with an enraged dragon, ordinary equipment wouldn't do. Phantom immediately pulled out the storm bow, charged it up, and with one shot, pierced the guardian dragon's eye. Seeing this, the Shadow Brothers finally caught a breather, but they tried to lure the dragon toward Phantom. At the same time, the dragon's attacks came again, and the Shadow Brothers ran into the forest as planned. Seeing this, Phantom smirked, instantly seeing through their intentions. Too bad their hopes were in vain. He drew the storm bow again, shadow power surging as he shot the arrow with a swoosh, then drew and fired multiple attacks in quick succession. After finishing, he put away the storm bow. "The hunt ends now," he said, appearing before the Shadow Brothers and mocking them for only knowing how to run. Vincent and Edbar shouted angrily, "What are you doing here? You should be supporting us from a distance." But Phantom calmly told them to look up at the sky. There, countless light points appeared suddenly and fell like meteors, piercing the guardian dragon's body and pinning it firmly to the ground in an instant. The two were shocked beyond belief, such a powerful guardian dragon was killed so easily. Phantom then took out the storm bow again, praising, "This really is a good weapon. No wonder Karl Signa wanted it so badly." Seeing this, the two realized Phantom had known everything all along. They flatteringly said they were just insignificant players and offered to trade Karl's intel in exchange for their lives. But Phantom coldly refused on the spot. They knew too much to be left alive. Seeing their pleas fail, Vincent decided to fight him to the death. Zhenxing lifted Morning Phantom and fled west, but Phantom's long sword was as fast as lightning, killing him in an instant. Watching his brother die right before his eyes, Edbar was consumed by rage and charged at Phantom, but his attack was easily neutralized. With Phantom's sword piercing through, Edbar's life came to an end. Phantom looked disgusted and said, "Trash like you only bring disaster to the world. Go to hell early." Just as he was about to finish off the divine dragon, the creature showed a pitiful expression of pleading, which made Phantom pause for a moment, but it couldn't stop his blade from falling. Thus, the once mighty guardian dragon finally fell, and the East Sea dungeon was cleared, granting 200 kilograms of dragon bone and a massive amount of experience points. Phantom's level soared rapidly, but there were still other things he had to do. He then went to the place where the Shadow Brothers had died, preparing to use the skill, Ling's confession, which he had obtained after clearing the Curse of Allure. Vincent's memories appeared in visual form, and Phantom decided to search his most recent memories first to take a look. With a swoosh, Phantom entered another scene, where he saw the Shadow Brothers committing brutal massacres against innocent humans, making him curse in anger, dying that easily is too cheap for them. He then searched for memories related to Karl. He saw the Shadow Brothers arriving at a laundry shop where a man in black instructed them to enter the East Sea dungeon together with Phantom. Seeing this, Phantom guessed this must be Karl's territory. As the memories went deeper, Phantom witnessed the two becoming demons. A man in a white suit had granted them demonic power, but just as Phantom tried to see more, a sharp pain surged in his mind. The skill level was too low to read everything, and for safety, the process was forcibly terminated. Phantom pondered who that man might be. His status was clearly higher than the Shadow Brothers. To obtain more intel, he would first have to level up the skill. Then a thought suddenly came to his mind, this skill should also allow him to view other creatures' memories. The divine dragon was far stronger than the nine-tailed fox, and its origins were surely extraordinary, so he immediately began reading the dragon's memories. He then saw a monk respectfully addressing the man before him as, "Your Majesty." It turned out the divine dragon had once been a king. When his time was nearly up, he ordered his ashes to be scattered into the East Sea, willingly giving up reincarnation to transform into a guardian dragon protecting his people. After seeing this, Phantom was filled with mixed emotions. He never expected the dragon had once been human, an emperor who had willingly become a dragon to protect his citizens. A deep sense of admiration surged within him. He knelt down to mourn and perform rites for the dragon. "This land is safe now. You may rest in peace." The next moment, the dragon's scales shone brightly, and its body turned into golden light, slowly dispersing. Finally, a golden dragon whisk materialized in the air. "Young man, thank you for delivering me," a voice said. By clearing the East Sea Dungeon's hidden quest, Phantom obtained 10,000 waves repelled, and the title, Guardian of the Divine Dragon. He hadn't expected a hidden quest at all, which explained the reward of such rare equipment. Scratching his head, Phantom sighed, it'd be great if there were more hidden quests like this in the future. Soon after, the press conference was ready. Everyone was in disbelief that the Shadow Brothers had died inside. Phantom then appeared at the conference and explained the cause of their deaths, saying it was all because he accidentally walked into a maze and got separated from them. By the time he found his way out, they had already been killed by the final boss. If only he had gotten out earlier, maybe the outcome could have been different. Phantom's emotional speech convinced everyone, unaware that he was actually the culprit. Meanwhile, Karl was watching the press conference with fury. "That damn guy is really lucky," he cursed. The Shadow Brothers' deaths would trigger a chain reaction, leaving no one to run their important auction, so he decided to move the hounds from the second floor to the first, determined to ensure the auction's success by any means necessary. Meanwhile, Phantom looked at the mountain of request slips piled before him, twitching at the corner of his mouth, and asked Sheen, "Are these not sorted yet? Why are there so many?" Sheen energetically replied that he had already sorted them, perhaps the number skyrocketed because Phantom cleared the East Sea Dungeon. Then Sheen suddenly noticed something, staring straight at Phantom. "You should really get a makeover, you look exhausted." He then pulled up some profiles of popular players. They weren't as powerful as Phantom, but at least they didn't look so unfashionable. Hearing himself being mocked, Phantom was speechless. Sheen then handed him a business card, telling him to get his hair done there, it was for his own image, after all. Phantom then told Sheen to go home and rest early, he must have been exhausted from all the work. Hearing this made Sheen so happy that his eyes sparkled like stars. He quickly thanked him and dashed out at lightning speed, not forgetting to remind him to get a haircut on the way. That night, Phantom went out fully armed. As the saying goes, fame makes people wary, just like fattening makes pigs afraid. Back when he was still unknown, all he had to do was take off his mask to get his hair cut at any barbershop, but now everything had changed.